I came across on YouTube, and this is like an interesting thing to tie this all together, of a guy that does this series called Death of a Game. And he actually looks at old MMOs or old games in general that have shut down and looks into like what led up to this happening. And he's done a bunch on like, like he did Star Wars Galaxies. He did like a whole bunch of them. And it's really interesting to see, like, he does a ton. Like, I have to give this guy a ton of credit. Like, he does a ton of research, and his videos are usually a good like 25 to, I've seen as long as like 35, 40 minutes. And the one that was really interesting was he did one on Star Wars Galaxies, and he just recently did one on the Old Republic. And it's interesting because like he'll do games that like people still play them now, but he'll do it on suggestions of like people that they tell him like, hey, you should do it on this game. And he talks about how like when you look at like especially Star Wars Galaxies, that it was the first true like Star Wars MMO where you had like, it was open sandbox. You decided what you wanted to do. Like, you want to be a smuggler? Cool, you're a smuggler. You want to be a bounty hunter? Cool, you're a bounty hunter. You want to be a Twi'lek that dances at the club and that's what you do? That's what you did. And that was what drew a lot of people to that game. And then when they did that refresh of the game where they completely changed it, and now you had classes and all that, they thought, oh, we're going to like, because World of Warcraft is taking off and we're going to get people to come to our game like that. That actually, what's funny is in this guy's research, it drove even more people away from the game.
Yeah, and it changed the combat system too.
Yeah, and they were saying that like people that played Star Wars Galaxies, when they saw them do that, they're like, this is not what we wanted to do. Like, we like the old system. And I mean, even he goes even into the whole like, when they first added in how to become a Jedi in Star Wars Galaxies, that I remember reading what you had to do, and I was like, yo, these guys are insane at what like you have to grind out to become like a Force-sensitive character. And then I remember the whole debacle that happened, that once you created the Jedi, that it was very, very difficult for people to kill you. But then it got to a point that like if you died, you were dead. And then you had all these like clans that would put bounties on these Jedi, like millions of credits to kill Jedi, But like that's a thing where like like I said, his series is so great because he really goes into like a whole bunch of different ones, and it's like, and he did one on Tabula Rasa, and he talks about how it broke down and all that stuff, and he even, I believe, interviewed Richard Garriott about it. And Garriott basically was there for like the initial phase of it, and then he stepped away from it. Like they basically said, "Cool, we will take it from here," and he basically just had his name on it, and he really didn't know what was going on with it.
Oh man,
yeah. As opposed
like, to this.
Yeah, as opposed to like Ultima Online, that he still had input into the game.
I still wish that Ultima Online 2 came out. I was sad when that went down in flames.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many games when you sit there and you look at like good old MMOs. I will still say to this day, if there is one MMO that I miss, it's City of Heroes.
Oh yeah,
and he did one on City of Heroes too. And that game was, I missed that game because that was so much fun to play. Like, I remember my two favorite heroes that I had a defender, so a healer. And I suck at playing healers. But that was the only game that I enjoyed playing a healer.
Like, it was crazy. There's a few things to me right off the bat why I knew City of Heroes wouldn't succeed that long. And one was not enough tile sets. You can't have a game where it's an MMO and it's either a warehouse, an office building, a laboratory, or the park, or a sewer. I'm sorry. So it was like 5. And the other thing was, and I didn't learn about this until later, originally in the early beta of the game, it was open. You could pick whatever you wanted. Like, for instance, if you wanted a character that just had all travel powers, and how they worked in City of Heroes is after you reach a certain level, you would get like jump, then super jump, and then hover, then fly, then sprint, then super speed, and so on. Teleport. So if you want to make a character that's all that they can do, that's it. You just pick
Hmm.
travel powers, and that's it. And towards the end, they were like, man, we're worried that people will end up making characters that gimp themselves because they don't have enough powers to compete in later levels.
Hmm.
And what's strange about that comment is City of Heroes is one of those games where people love to make new characters. Like, people thought that
Yeah.
you made a lot of characters in World of Warcraft. People were inventing characters just to go and dance in Atlas City, you know,
Bro.
for no reason. So the idea that you would draw people away because they might make a character they don't like or that's gimped and they have to start over, no, they should have went with that original concept that you could pick whatever power you want no matter what and just go with it.
I think my favorite thing about that is like, if you created, like, you could, what was funny is you could create so many like clones of like Marvel heroes,
Yeah.
but it was hilarious because if you named them the IP name, they would make you change your name.
Yeah.
So what was hilarious is I had a tank who was huge, green, wore purple shorts called Bulk. I had a scrapper that had the claws for his weapon and had an exact costume of Wolverine, and I called him the Badger. Like, it was amazing how you could sit there and make these characters, like, you could customize their costumes. And I agree with you. There was people that would just spend time just creating these characters to look like Marvel or DC superheroes and name them whatever, and they would just play around and go through the, like, I never had a max level character. I think the highest I got was in my 20s or something, and I think max level in that game was like 30 or something like that.
I think in the end it was 40, and I think for
Yeah.
me, I got into the mid 20s when you got to places like Bricktown and stuff like that, and I was like, by then I was losing interest. World of Warcraft was coming out, Conan was out, so,
And I will say this, dude, like, if you never played it beyond that, with that game, like, leveling became a non-issue once they came out with this one mini expansion where you could create missions.
Oh yeah.
Because it literally turned into like, oh, you're going to run the simulation like a real mission. And it was a rectangular map of a city. So it was building in between blocks. And literally every corner or every street that you went over was a group of like 20 or 30 bad guys just clustered together. So you'd grab a group of 5 together, you'd go into the first cluster, rip through those 30 guys. You go to the next cluster, rip through those 30, and you just literally ran the whole city around. And I remember the first time I did it, I went in as a level 20. I finished one loop around with this like map, and I was already 25. Like, I gained 5 levels just going around one time, and I'm like, holy mackerel, they completely broke this game. So you had a ton of people that were maxing out their characters, running through the end game raids just because, and then it got to a point where people would create these missions and just make them harder and harder and harder just to see how far you could go with your heroes.
Yep.
I
thought that was interesting. They did the same thing in the Neverwinter Nights game. Mm-hmm. They made it where you could create maps, and people made some really interesting stuff, scavenger hunts, all types of stuff. It's amazing because sometimes you expect that players will end up making really terrible things. And obviously there was some that were bad, but they had a good rating system where there would be votes from multiple people, and you would see like, oh, this is actually a well put together map, and it's like, oh, this one someone threw together in 5 seconds just for a joke. So it was interesting.
But yeah, but it's like I said, like, I enjoy playing through the Division, but at the same time, it's like, okay, all right, like, this is ridiculous. Although it's funny because I picked up for the PC the like the gold edition or whatever it is that has all the DLC in it. And I can tell you with the DLC from the get-go, because of course I had to start all over from the beginning. Dude, you start getting purple weapons right off the bat now. So I'm like, oh, okay, 4 shots. Bup, 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 bup. That guy's dropped. Bup, 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 bup. That guy's dropped. Bup, 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 bup. I'm like, all right, I'm cutting through the early game. So you can see how they're trying to get you to progress through the early game stuff real quick so you can get towards the end game stuff. But I like really enjoyed the story of the Division. I just finished beating Wildlands. Let me tell you, If you want a game that's like a second job, boy, get yourself Wildlands. That is a third-person shooter. It is open world, kind of like Division, but no RPG. Like it has, I won't even say it's RPG elements. Like you can find different weapons that do more damage or whatever, and more penetration and blah blah blah. But the thing that I found funny, one of the last DLCs that they came out with, they added a mission into the game where the name of the mission is called "The Jungle is Moving." And then you go to this like one area and it's in part of the jungle and you see this girl that's got like blood all over her and she's freaked out and she speaks kind of like Spanish. And he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh, it came out of the jungle and it got them. It was crazy and this and that." And she like starts talking in like half Spanish. She's like, "What in the world are you talking about?" She's like, "Ay, Dios mío, they are all dead." And then it tells you like investigate in the forest. So then you start going through and then you get to this first area and you find like a whole bunch of like human skulls and then skulls with the spine still on it, like clean. And they're like, "What the heck is going on here?" And this and that, and then like you go to the next area and you go to the next area and you see guys stripped of their skin hanging upside down. And they're like, "Yo, the cartel can do some pretty messed up things, but I've never seen anything like this."
Mm-hmm.
And then you like investigate the third area. And what do you see? You see a crashed alien ship. And they're like, "Is that a, no, it can't be." So then like I hear this like roar and then you go out to this section of the jungle and guess who you run into? A predator.
Oh.
And yo, when I tell you it was hard to kill this thing, it was hard to kill this thing. Like I must have tried 6 times. And what's really cool is when I finally got him, you like get to the thing and you see him kind of like drop down on one knee, kind of like slouched over. And you kind of hear him like, and then it like the mission changes to, like confirm the predator's dead. Now, what's really neat is when you're fighting him, you'll hear running and you'll like turn and you'll see like the kind of like wavy thing of him running through the jungle.
Oh, the cloak, yeah.
Yeah, with the cloak. And then what's neat is you'll hear him every so often taunting you, like him in your own voice saying, "Is that real?" Like just like the movies, dude. And then like what's neat is you see him kind of like slouched over and you run up to him and all of a sudden you see him kind of like stand up and he goes tick, 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 on his arm. And as soon as it's done, you hear him like, oh, 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 oh. And then like your mission is escape the area. And it was so funny because I ran out and I just crossed the safe zone and my 3 AI guys were still in the zone when he blew up and all 3 of them got dropped dead. I was like, "Oh my God, I could have died there." It was so funny. And I was like, dude, that was a cool mission to throw into the game.
Oh man, now I gotta check that out.
Yeah, look up Ghost Recon Wildlands Predator mission and you'll see the whole mission. And it's insane.
Hey guys, listen. You like the games? You like the interviews? You like the shows? How about you click on that subscribe button and also give us a like? We really need your help here, huh?